Good morning. Yesterday, the Reverend Wendy Lambert in her sermon told us about Elisha and the widow of Sidon. It was all about how there's a terrible drought and a terrible famine. And this widow and her only child, they had only a little bit of water left and a little bit of flour, and they figured that would be their last meal and they would starve to death. The prophet Elisha came along, and the prophet said, "Would you share with me your water and the little you have to eat?" And the widow was willing to do this. Now, she was not a Jew. No, she was of another country and a faith, but she was willing to share it with the prophet. And because she did, Elisha said, "You're never going to run out of flour. You're never going to run out of oil, water." It just somehow continued to multiply, and she had enough to continue to be fed all the way through the famine. Because she was willing to be nice. She was willing to be kind and share what little she had when it seemed insignificant, unimportant, and she only had a little to give. In that moment, she was willing to be kind. Well, Wendy asked us, for all of us, to think about how we all can be kind, the smiles we can all offer to someone, just a kind word, little things we can be doing each day, and how so often that little kindness will bless a life, but in the end, it also brings us great joy. There's no question. In the end, it feeds our soul in the midst of pandemics, and it helps to lift our spirits. Marcia and I were having dinner with some friends the other night, and we all sitting around the table after dinner just telling stories. And our host told a funny story about his company. How every year they had Dirty Santa, where you get a gift, you get to choose a gift, you open it, and then if you decide you want to take someone else's gift, you can do that. And so everybody has fun getting a gift and then saying if you want to take somebody else's gift. Well, he said there was a lady, she was more middle-aged. She opened a gift and it was a box of tools. I mean, wrenches and sockets and screwdrivers. I mean, it was a lovely box of tools. Well, everyone was laughing and she was excited. Okay, I got a great box of tools. Well, then there was this 21-year-old, a young boy. He opened a box, and what it was a bunch of wood chips, if you will. This was a molding company. And so there were different little pieces of molding in there and kind of sawdust. And I mean, it was obviously a joke. I mean, he chose the blocks, the sawdust, and everybody was laughing, and he was so mad. He put his arms down and he just pouted. How could it happen to him? He was just so mad about it. Well, the lady who then had chosen the tools, she looked at him after having made her choice and how upset he was, and she just decided to be kind. And she said, "I think I want your box." And so she took his box full of wood chips and gave him the set of tools, and now he was so thrilled. And she was all right with that. It was just a game, a Dirty Santa, and she took it. Well, finally the whole game was over and everybody taking all their different gifts. Then the owner said to her, "Why don't you dig to the bottom of that box?" And so she dug through all the pieces and the chips, and there in the bottom of the box were 2 airline tickets to Las Vegas, hotel reservations, and $500 in cash. She had gotten the big prize, the big gift of the night. And now that 21-year-old stormed out, and he was so unhappy. He still hadn't figured out the message. What does it mean to think about somebody else rather than just yourself? By being kind, in the end, not only will you bless life, but let me tell you, you will be blessed. The smiles that it will put in your heart because you were kind to somebody else. Maybe this week, you and I are going to think about that, and I want to talk about it all week long as you and I think about how can we do what Wendy said. Start with a smile, a kind word, and look for the kind and small ways that you and I can bless another life. It's how you love your neighbor, no exception. Have a great week.